Listen carefully. What I'm about to reveal has been whispered in shadowed corners of power for generations, passed down through bloodlines that have shaped kingdoms and toppled empires. These are not theories from books written by professors who have never felt the weight of true responsibility. These are the secrets that separate those who merely dream of influence from those who wield it absolutely. The world believes power comes from wealth, from armies, from the ability to destroy. They are wrong. Power comes from understanding a truth so fundamental that most men die without ever grasping it. Everything in this world, is about human nature. Master this, and they will follow where others cannot even imagine leading. Those who truly understand power know that it operates like an invisible current beneath every interaction, every relationship, every moment of human contact. It flows from one person to another based on laws as precise as mathematics, as predictable as gravity. Yet these laws remain hidden from those who have not paid the price to learn them. The first law is this: power is never given, it is only recognized. Those who beg for authority will never possess it. Those who demand it will find it slipping through their fingers like sand. But those who embody it naturally, who carry themselves with the quiet certainty of kings, will find that others instinctively defer to them, seek their approval, compete for their attention. Watch how men behave in the presence of true power. They lean forward when it speaks. They measure their words more carefully. They seek to please without being asked. This is not because they fear punishment, but because they recognize something in that presence that calls to the deepest part of their nature, the part that yearns to follow something greater than themselves. But here lies the great paradox. The more desperately someone wants to be seen as powerful, the more powerless they appear. Genuine authority whispers where pretense must shout. It moves slowly, deliberately, with the confidence of someone who knows that time itself will bend to their will. Those who have risen to the highest levels understand that power has its own ecosystem, its own food chain, its own rules of survival. In this ecosystem, perception often matters more than reality. A man believed to be dangerous is more dangerous than a man who simply is. A reputation for keeping promises is more valuable than gold. A whisper of displeasure from the right person carries more weight than screaming threats from the wrong one. That the wise leader learns to think in decades, not days. They plant seeds knowing they may never see the harvest, but understanding that their children's children will feast on the fruit. They make decisions based not on what feels good in the moment, but on what will strengthen their position, their family, their legacy for generations to come. Every successful leader has learned to read the invisible map that shows how power really flows through organizations, through communities, through societies. They understand that the person with the title is not always the person with the influence. They know that sometimes the secretary wields more real power than the executive, the lieutenant more than the general, the advisor more than the king. This map is constantly changing. Alliances shift like shadows at sunset. Today's loyal friend becomes tomorrow's dangerous enemy. Yesterday's bitter rival becomes an essential ally. Those who cannot adapt to these changes, who cling to old resentments or outdated loyalties, will find themselves isolated, vulnerable, eventually destroyed. The second law reveals itself to those who pay attention. Fear and respect may look similar from a distance, but they create entirely different foundations. Fear makes others obey while present, but plot while absent. Respect makes others protective of interests even when unobserved. Fear breeds resentment that grows stronger with time. Respect builds loyalty that deepens with every interaction. A leader who rules through fear must constantly escalate the threats to maintain control. Eventually, they run out of credible threats, or they encounter someone who simply refuses to be frightened. But a leader who inspires genuine respect has built something that becomes stronger with age, more valuable with time. How does one build this kind of respect? Through consistency above all else. When words match actions repeatedly, when promises made are promises kept, when justice is dispensed fairly regardless of personal feelings, people begin to trust. And trust is the foundation upon which all lasting power rests, but consistency alone is not enough. Those who understand power know that they must also demonstrate strength selectively, strategically, memorably. Not the crude strength of the bully, but the controlled power of someone who could destroy but chooses to build, who could take revenge but chooses justice, who could rule through fear but earns devotion through respect. The timing of such demonstrations matters enormously. Strike too often and become a tyrant. Strike too rarely and appear weak. The master understands that power, like a fine wine, must be aged properly, brought out only on occasions worthy of its potency. Those who rise highest also understand that information is the true currency of influence. Not just secrets, though secrets have their place, but understanding. Understanding what motivates each person in their orbit. Understanding which relationships matter and which are merely decorative. Understanding when to speak and when silence carries more weight. They cultivate sources everywhere, in the kitchens and the boardrooms, in the streets and the mansions. They listen not just to what people say, but to what they don't say. They watch body language, notice who speaks to whom, observe who prospers and who suffers, and from these observations they build a picture of reality that others cannot see. This intelligence network is not built through coercion or payment alone, but through genuine relationships, through small favors given without expectation of immediate return, through remembering details about people's lives that others consider insignificant. The person who remembers that someone's mother is ill, that their child graduated, that their business is struggling, builds connections that transcend mere transaction. The third law emerges gradually for those patient enough to observe it. Emotional control is not the absence of feeling, but the mastery of expression. The leader who cannot be read clearly maintains an enormous advantage over those who wear their hearts on their sleeves. When others cannot predict reactions, they become more cautious, more respectful, more eager to please. They project their own fears and hopes onto that mysterious calm, often creating more psychological impact than any threat could achieve, but this control must be genuine, not performed. Those who merely act calm while seething inside will eventually crack under pressure, revealing their deception and destroying their credibility. True emotional mastery comes from understanding that feelings are information, not commands. They inform decision-making but do not control it. The highest levels of leadership require the ability to remain steady during chaos, thoughtful during crisis, generous during scarcity, and humble during triumph. These qualities cannot be faked long-term. They must be developed through experience, through deliberately choosing the harder path when it serves the greater good. Those who master these skills find that others seek them out during difficult times, trust them with sensitive matters, defer to their judgment in complex situations. They become the eye of the storm, the fixed point around which everything else revolves. The fourth law reveals itself only to those who have earned the right to see it. True power is always personal, never institutional. Titles can be stripped away, positions can be eliminated, organizations can be dissolved, but the qualities that create genuine influence travel with the person who possesses them. This is why wise leaders focus more on developing their character than accumulating external symbols of authority. They understand that respect earned through integrity will outlast any temporary role or position. They also understand that building lasting influence requires creating value for others, not just extracting it. The leader who makes everyone around them more successful, more secure, more fulfilled, builds a network of genuine allies who will defend their interests even when it costs them personally. This is not altruism disguised as strategy. It is strategy in its purest form. Human beings are naturally reciprocal. Those who consistently give more than they take will find that others compete to repay the debt. But this generosity must be strategic, directed toward those capable of reciprocation, offered in ways that create genuine value rather than mere obligation. The fifth law appears only to those who have paid the highest price for their education. The greatest power lies in the ability to remain unseen while controlling what others see. The puppet master is always more powerful than the puppet, regardless of how impressive the puppet appears. This principle operates at every level of human organization. Sometimes the most influential person in a room is not the one giving the presentation, but the one who decided what should be presented. Sometimes the real power lies not with the person making the decision, but with the one who shaped what decisions were possible. Those who understand this principle learn to influence from positions of apparent lesser authority. They learn to plant ideas so skillfully that others believe they originated them. They learn to create situations where their preferred outcomes appear to be the only logical choices. This invisible influence requires extraordinary patience and even more extraordinary ego control. Credit must be shared, recognition must be deflected, success must appear to belong to others even when guided by an unseen hand. But the rewards for this sacrifice are immense: security that comes from being underestimated, freedom that comes from reduced scrutiny, and power that cannot be challenged because it cannot be clearly identified. The true master operates like water, flowing around obstacles rather than confronting them directly, finding the path of least resistance while gradually wearing away the hardest stone. They understand that the most devastating victories are often those where the defeated never realize a battle was fought. Those who reach the highest levels of understanding recognize that power exists in cycles, like the tide. It flows in and out, builds and recedes, concentrates and disperses according to forces larger than any individual will. The wise leader learns to recognize these cycles and position themselves to benefit from the natural flow rather than fighting against it. During times when their influence is ascending, they consolidate gains, build reserves, plant seeds for future growth. During times of decline, they preserve what matters most, maintain key relationships, prepare for the next opportunity. They never mistake a temporary setback for permanent defeat, nor a temporary advantage for eternal dominance. This long-term perspective allows them to make decisions that appear sacrificial in the short term but prove strategically brilliant over time. They can afford to lose individual battles because they are focused on winning the larger war. They can appear to retreat because they are actually repositioning for a more advantageous engagement. The ultimate mastery comes from understanding that power itself is not the goal, it is the means to an end. Those who seek influence for its own sake will find it ultimately hollow, a game with no real winners, an addiction that demands ever-increasing doses while providing diminishing satisfaction. But those who understand power as responsibility, as stewardship, as the ability to protect what they love and build what they believe in, find that it becomes a source of deep satisfaction, a tool for creating lasting value, a legacy worthy of the price they paid to achieve it. They learn to see their authority not as something they possess, but as something held in trust for future generations. Every decision becomes a choice between immediate gratification and long-term benefit. Every use of influence becomes an investment in a future they may not live to see but will certainly help to create. The greatest leaders in history understood this principle instinctively. They built not just for themselves, but for their children, their people, their ideals. They created institutions, traditions, systems of thought that outlasted their physical presence by centuries. This is the difference between power and mere force, between influence and simple coercion, between leadership and temporary dominance. Force dissipates when the strong man dies. Coercion ends when the threat is removed. Dominance crumbles when circumstances change, but true power, properly understood and carefully cultivated, becomes immortal. It lives on in the principles it established, the people it developed, the systems it created, the example it provided. It echoes through generations, shaping decisions and inspiring actions long after its original source has returned to dust. Those who dedicate themselves to understanding these deeper truths about power often discover something unexpected. The more they learn about influencing others, the more they understand about controlling themselves. The more they master the art of leadership, the more they appreciate the value of service. The higher they rise in the hierarchy of authority, the deeper they sink their roots into humility. This paradox is not accidental. Real power demands sacrifice. It requires placing the needs of others above personal desires, accepting responsibility for outcomes beyond direct control, bearing the weight of decisions that affect lives they may never know about. It asks them to be stronger than they feel, wiser than they are, more patient than seems reasonable. But for those who accept these burdens willingly, who embrace the loneliness and difficulty of true leadership, who understand that authority exists to serve rather than to be served, power becomes something greater than a tool or a weapon or a prize. That it becomes a sacred trust, what they don't teach in those business schools. What those leadership consultants will never tell their clients is that power has memory. Every action creates ripples that extend far beyond what the eye can see, far beyond what the mind can calculate. The leader who understands this thinks not just about immediate consequences, but about how their decisions will be remembered, how their methods will be judged, how their legacy will shape the actions of those who come after. There are leaders who build empires that crumble the moment they die, because they built on fear, on intimidation, on the temporary submission of those too weak to resist. And there are leaders whose influence grows stronger after death, because they built on principles, on values, on the voluntary devotion of those who believed in something greater than themselves. The difference lies not in talent, not in circumstances, not in luck, but in understanding. Understanding that every person they encounter is fighting battles they know nothing about, carrying burdens they cannot see, harboring dreams they dare not voice. The leader who can see past the surface, who can recognize the humanity in everyone they meet, who can speak to the deepest aspirations rather than the surface desires, possesses a power that cannot be bought, cannot be stolen, cannot be defeated by force. This kind of influence requires patience beyond what most are willing to invest. It means listening not just to words, but to the silences between words. It means watching not just actions, but the hesitations before actions. It means understanding that the person who speaks loudest is often the one with the least to say, while the one who remains quiet may possess wisdom worth more than gold. Those who master these subtle arts discover something remarkable. The more power they accumulate, the less they need to display it. Their reputation precedes them. Their word carries weight not because of the threat behind it, but because of the trust it has earned. They can accomplish more with a raised eyebrow than others can with shouted commands, but this mastery comes with a price that few are willing to pay. It requires giving up the immediate satisfaction of being feared for the longer-term benefit of being respected. It means accepting responsibility not just for successes, but for failures. It means becoming the person others turn to when everything goes wrong, when the easy solutions have been exhausted, when someone must make the choice that no one else is willing to make. The burden of true leadership is that it never ends. There is no vacation from responsibility, no holiday from the weight of decision-making, no retirement from the consequences of choices made years or decades ago. Every day brings new challenges that test not just intelligence or skill, but character. Every decision becomes part of a permanent record that will be studied, analyzed, judged by people who are not present, who do not understand the pressures of the moment, who have the luxury of hindsight. Yet for those who understand the true nature of power, this burden becomes not a curse but a calling. They recognize that they have been entrusted with something precious, something that can be used to create or destroy, to build or tear down, to inspire or corrupt. They approach this trust with the reverence it deserves, with the humility that comes from understanding how much damage careless power can inflict. The wise leader also understands that power multiplies when shared wisely, but diminishes when hoarded selfishly. They surround themselves not with sycophants who will agree with everything they say, but with advisors who will challenge their assumptions, question their methods, force them to examine their blind spots. They create systems that function effectively even in their absence, because they understand that no one, no matter how capable, is indispensable. They also recognize that the greatest power lies not in controlling others, but in controlling themselves. The leader who can master their own impulses, who can remain calm when others panic, who can think clearly when emotions run high, possesses an advantage that no external force can overcome. This self-mastery becomes a source of strength that others can sense, even if they cannot define it. In the end, those who truly understand power discover that it transforms them in ways they never expected. They become repositories of secrets they never sought to know, bearers of burdens they never asked to carry, holders of trust they never imagined they would need to honor. They learn that the price of influence is eternal vigilance, not just against external enemies, but against the corrupting tendencies that power awakens within themselves. They discover that the loneliness of leadership is not just about being separated from others by the weight of responsibility, but about being the only one who can see the full picture, who understands all the connections, who grasps the true complexity of the decisions that must be made. This perspective can be isolating, but it is also liberating, because it frees them from the need to explain themselves to those who lack the context to understand. The final lesson that power teaches is perhaps the most important: that influence earned through character lasts longer than influence imposed through force, that respect built on consistency outlives fear based on unpredictability, that legacy created through service endures while monuments built through self-aggrandizement crumble into dust. Those who learn these lessons while they still have time to apply them, who understand these truths while they can still act upon them, who grasp these principles while they can still shape their destiny, will find that power becomes not their master, but their servant. They will discover that true strength lies not in the ability to compel others, but in the capacity to inspire them. They will realize that the greatest victory is not defeating enemies, but creating allies. They will understand that the most lasting influence comes not from what they take, but from what they give, and in that understanding, they will have learned the deepest secret of all, that power, properly wielded, is not about dominion over others, but about service to something greater than themselves. It is about using whatever influence they have been given to leave the world better than they found it, to protect those who cannot protect themselves, to create opportunities for those who come after them. This is the ultimate paradox of power. The more selflessly it is used, the more enduring it becomes. The more it is employed in service of others, the more it multiplies. The more it is guided by principle rather than ego, the more it transforms both the wielder and the world around them. Those who understand this paradox, who embrace this responsibility, who accept this burden, will find that power becomes not a weight that crushes them, but wings that lift them above the petty concerns of lesser men. They will discover that influence wielded wisely creates a legacy that echoes through generations, touching lives they will never know, solving problems they will never see, creating possibilities they will never experience. In the shadows where real power resides, where the true decisions are made, where the course of history is quietly determined, there is room for only those who have paid the price, learned the lessons, accepted the burden. The rest remain forever on the outside, wondering how the game is played, never understanding that the greatest players are often invisible, their victories silent, their satisfaction private. This is the way of true power. This is the path that separates the rulers from the ruled, the shapers from the shaped, the creators of destiny from those who simply accept whatever destiny is handed to them.